We're going to talk a little bit about credit health and credit reports. We're going to talk a little bit about debt and interest, how to pay back your loans. Oh my God, I got this much in loans. What do I do next? You know, how to manage it effectively. What kind of debt is good? What kind of debt is bad? How to budget? Just a little bit of my tips that I've been through in the last couple of years that I'm going to share with you as we move along on the presentation. Okay. But before we start, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my dental school experience. And as Rich was saying, so that's my office. That's a couple of my team members. It was a breast cancer awareness walk. We did a 5K run, so that was just a few months ago, just us hanging out. So let's talk a little bit about me. Again, that's my office. We always hang out together, so that's just us after work one day. So as Rich said, so I'm from Atlanta. I went to undergrad at University of Georgia in Athens, and afterwards I went on to dental school down at Nova in Fort Lauderdale. And I graduated there in May of 2013. So after I graduated, I started working at a private practice for a few months locally, and that private practice got bought by a DSO. So I started working with this DSO for a couple more months. For about 4 months total, I was there, and I realized that, this just wasn't the right fit for me. This isn't what I was looking for. And I'm going to tell you what I'm looking for in just a second. So then I joined PDS, or Pacific Dental Services. And what they are, I joined an office as an associate, and it is an office that is supported by Pacific Dental Services. And I started working here in 2014, and I've been here ever since. So I was an I was an associate for about a year, and afterwards I bought into the practice as an owner dentist, and I have been here since then. So it's been about 2 years for me as an owner. So what led me to my decision was when I was in school, I knew exactly what I wanted and what I didn't want. And one of the things that I didn't want is I didn't want to own my own office right away because I knew enough that I didn't know anything, okay? When I got out of school, I wanted to enhance my clinical skills. I wanted to learn more about the business, which I knew nothing about. I needed to learn a lot of things that, dental school, they teach you, but how to apply it to the real world. So I knew I wasn't ready to be in my own private practice. What I enjoyed about Pacific Dental is the private practice model in the sense that I have the mentorship. I have clinicians here that are, as you heard from Dr. Bianca last week, mentors who can guide you and train you on your path. I had the opportunity that I could focus on the clinical skills, so I don't have to really worry too much about the business at the time until I was ready to kind of take ownership and learn about the business. So PDS offered that support for me. And of course, the biggest thing for me outside of, modern technology and, treating patients the way we're taught to treat patients, which is comprehensive treatment planning, the biggest thing was growth, okay? What did I want and where did I want to go next? And I knew I always wanted to be an owner, but I didn't know how to get to that spot. And that's what PDS offered me. And that's why I chose PDS and have been with them since then. So, but like I said, each of us, we decide what's best fit for us professionally and personally. So whether that's private practice, whether that's opening up your own practice, whether that's going in with a partner or joining a DSO or going in public health or the service, it doesn't matter. There is a fit for everybody. This just happens to be the fit for me. All right, so let's get right into it. Now that I, talked a little bit about myself, let's talk about what we're really here for, student loan debt. Yes, those dreaded words. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, it's the largest form of consumer debt other than mortgages, okay? Right now, at this moment, as of 2017, there is $1.3 trillion in student debt. I'm going to say that again, okay? It's $1.3 trillion. That's a lot of money that we owe. For the D4s, as of 2016, you can look at that number right on the screen. The average debt is $261,000. And that's actually up, about 40% since 2010. And when I graduated in 2013, it was a little lower than that. I would probably say between the 225 and the 250s on average. But that's not a small number at all, This is something that if it hasn't already affected you, it will start affecting you once you graduate. And let me tell you about my student debt real quick. So when I went to Nova, and I am based out in Georgia, so Nova was a out-of-state school, and it was a private school as well. So you can imagine what kind of tuition it was. So, for those of you that are in some of these bigger schools, that number is right around there, okay? I was lucky enough that I did have parental support to help me pay for food and pay for, gas, to kind of the day-to-day expenses, okay? But in terms of tuition, rent, equipment for school, clinical costs, all that stuff, I took out loans, okay? And I took out all the loans that you can probably think there are out there, all the federal direct student loans through the federal direct student loan program, okay? The subsidized, unsubsidized, Stafford, I'm sure you guys are familiar with those, and I'm not going to go too much into detail about that, but I took out all the same loans that you probably have right now. And when I graduated, that number that you see on the screen, mine was a little less than that, but I was still 6 figures in debt. And it's scary to think that when you're coming out, what do I do with this? How am I going to pay this off, okay? So what I'm going to talk about is the steps that we're going to take to position ourselves for the success for the future, and that's what we're going to be talking about. But before we do that, what you have to understand, you've got to understand the 5 C's of credit. So I was going to talk about a little boring stuff real quick, but this is important, okay? What this is basically a system that lenders use to gauge the credit worthiness of borrowers, okay? So for you dental students who are going to be thinking about borrowing, money for future practice, or for a car loan or a house loan, or whatever the case may be, this is what the banks are going to be looking at, the 5 C's. And what this is for you to start thinking down the road, start thinking about that car or that house or that practice, which really should be the most important thing right now. And the way you're going to have to do this successfully is you're going to have to implement some certain strategies that we're going to talk about now, okay? So real quick about the 5 C's. So capital, that's basically, it's your net worth. It's anything that you put towards your investment. Capacity, that is a ratio. It's what's your ability to repay a loan, okay? It's a debt to income ratio, so to speak, okay? Collateral, it's basically, the value of things that you own. It's what you can use to help secure a loan, whether it's your car or, mortgage on a house, things of that nature. Conditions are, personal circumstances that can affect your ability to repay loans. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. And the most important one to me is character. What that is it measures how well you manage finances in the past. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with the word credit history, okay, or credit reports. That's what I'm getting at. This is what banks will use to say, hey, is this person somebody that we trust to pay us back our money, okay? So that's what this is about, and it's all going to be about protecting your credit, always, always, always. So let's talk about credit health. Listen to this. If new dentists do not protect their credit history for the 3 to 4 year period prior to their attempt to secure ownership, and this is you guys now, including the time in dental school, then their ability to secure the necessary financing for ownership may be delayed for years. So is this what I'm getting at? Is this starts now, okay? You guys can't wait a year or 2 years or 3 years to say, hey, I'll worry about it later. Let me finish up with school. Let me get my car. Let me get my practice, and I'll deal with this later. And I'll keep adding on the loans. So that's not how it's going to work. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. I've had a storm, so my lights keep kind of flickering in and out too. All right, so sorry about that. So let's talk about how to protect your credit, okay? This is the biggest thing that you need to do. How much you borrow and at what terms and how you manage your repayment, that all of this is going to have a serious impact on your credit score, okay? So please, please, please don't take out any more loans than you absolutely need. As I go through these, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did, so you'll be hearing me talk a little bit, and I'm going to summarize everything in my experience at the end, okay? So in terms of loans that I had taken out, I took out what I needed, and anytime Sally Mae told me, hey, here's $50,000 for this loan, and I only needed $45,000 for a specific tuition for the semester, I took that $5 grand and I gave it right back to them, okay? I didn't go out and, you know, get a video game system or, you know, put it towards my car while I was in dental school. I didn't do any of that. I didn't go spend it on a night out with my friends. I gave it right back, okay? So don't take out more than what you absolutely need to make while you're in school. Make sure you guys are paying all your payments on time. Pretty self-explanatory, but I'll tell you some of the risks that you run if you don't make your payments on time, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes, okay? Make sure you're paying full and avoid any sort of new debt and continue a normal lifestyle. Just because you're graduated and now you're a dentist, doctor, it doesn't mean you need to go out there and buy a Porsche, and it doesn't mean you need to go out there and buy that 5-bedroom house all for yourself, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second, okay? So if you can't make a payment, make sure you're working with your lenders on a solution. What are we going to do about it? And I'll talk about how to repay your loans in a few slides down there. But the point of this right here is that don't take out more loans than you need and pay them back right away, okay? So let's talk a little bit about your credit health, credit history. I'm sure some of you guys or all of you guys know this. You know, you've seen the commercials. I hope you've actually went on and looked at it for yourself. These are all free. There are ways to monitor your credit, okay? Experian is the one I have, Equifax. They're all really, really good. What this is it's a number that you use. I think it's between 300 to 850. And it gives you a credit report, okay? So anything over a certain amount is good. I believe it's around 700. So the higher the number this is, the higher the chance you have to get a loan approval, is the better chance you have to get good interest rates, things of that nature. And what can affect this? Things that can affect this is if you pay a loan late, if you pay a credit card bill late, if you don't pay it at all, or if you get sent to collections, or if you default on a loan, or if you have, you know, you charge everything to your plastic and you have high credit card balances, all of that is going to negatively affect your credit score, okay? So I'm going to have Rich kind of take a poll over here now for just a second.
That's great. Thank you so much for that nice little segue. We have a quick poll we'd like to have your feedback on, folks, and understand just from the perspective that you have about your credit scores. I can see everybody hitting it already. Thank you for sharing your feedback, really valuable. That's great. We'll let just a couple more seconds go for those who are just finishing the thought process now. Do you know your credit score? That's really great, you guys. There's as I'm watching the results come in, I'm going to post them in just a second so you can see the same, but there's a tremendous amount of knowledge that you have about your credit scores already, and we're just going to do this real quick. I'm going to let you finish up your displays, and here's how that finished up. About 12 seconds to go, and we will display how you fare compared to your peers. Just one more moment. And here's what that looks like. Okay, thanks everyone. We appreciate that brief little interlude, and now I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Patel.
All right, so it looks, yeah, so some of us, yeah, we're on top of it. That's good. I'm glad you guys know that. If you want to know the truth, I didn't know a lot of this while I was in dental school, so don't feel bad if you don't know, okay? You will know, and that's kind of what I'm here for, is because I made some mistakes. I'm going to talk about that, what I did wrong, and how I fixed it. And one of the things I did wrong was I did not keep up to date with my credit report, okay? I actually had a credit card that was open that I had no idea that I had it, and it was just been sitting there, and then when I saw it, I canceled it, and all of a sudden my credit score dropped, and it was this whole mess. So just for your own knowledge, make sure that you guys, you know, just log into it and click on it, and it'll give you your credit report. It's free. Check it out, okay? That's all I can say. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about, you know, debt. What's going to happen when you don't pay it? This is a picture of my staff. It was at our most recent holiday party, and, you know, that's what they look like every day. So let's talk about debt, okay? So just read that stat for me right there. So at a 10% interest, I know it's a little high. Some of you might be at 6, some might be at 8, but this is just a fun number to work with. At a 10% interest, if you have $100 that you owe, in 15 years, that $100 is going to grow to $400 of money that you're going to end up owing. And in 30 years, it's going to be $1,700 that you owe, okay? So each $100 that you spend on non-essentials instead of your school debt, it can cost you anywhere between $400 and $1,700. That is ridiculous. That's crazy, okay? So what does this mean? This means that this is the first thing you should be doing when you're coming out of school. You should start chopping away at your debt, you know? Don't dig yourself into a bigger hole, because the key to long-term financial health is you've got to set yourself up for success and for borrowing in the future. So that $100 that you want to spend on a brand new pair of jeans instead of putting into your debt, believe me, that's not going to work out well for you. And it may seem like little chunk change right now, but when you add this all up together, it is a lot amount of money in interest that you're just compounding that you have no reason to, okay? So let's talk about, you know, how are we going to prioritize and how are we going to pay off these loans as soon as possible, okay? So we're going to talk about a couple ways that you can start paying your loans once you graduate. There's a little bit of grace period for most of the loans, and I think I get into that slide next, but it's about 6 months, just so you're aware. So you can actually consolidate your loans, or you can actually refinance your loans, okay, for a lower rate. Now, what consolidation means is basically it's a fancy word for combine, okay? So you can combine your multiple federal loans into one single monthly payment, okay? Everything gets wiped off, that gets paid off, and instead what they do is they take the averages of the interest rate and they give you, you know, the average rounded to the nearest highest tenth, I think, and that's going to be your single monthly rate, okay, that you pay. The benefit of this is that you're not really worried about, you know, 10 different loans and trying to figure out which one's which, where to go. You just have one payment. So this does bring your monthly payment actually down because it's giving you more time to pay it off. I think it's up to 30 years. So this increases the length, but at the same time, this also increases more payments. And in turn, long run, you do end up paying a little bit more interest, okay? But that's one way that you can do. And when you do it this way, you know, once you have the interest rate that you're locked in at, unfortunately, that's the interest rate that it's going to be at, okay? So for me, what I did was I didn't consolidate because I started organizing myself, okay? When you log on to the, you know, federal loan website, there's usually all your loans will be pop up on there. So I had like maybe 7 to 10 kind of different hyperlinks, and I owed a certain dollar amount each month. So I just, you know, put that up on my bank savings account and connected it, and every month, each loan, they took a percentage or dollar amount from each loan, and it just got withdrew monthly from my bank account. And that's what I did to start with, okay? I'm going to tell you what I did to get rid of it, but that's what I started with. And I started with the standard 10-year program, okay? So this is just your, you know, 10 years. You have 10 years to pay your loans off. You pay less for the overall loan amount because, again, you're paying less over time, so your interest is less, okay? You can do a graduated program, and what that is, you start off low, and every 2 years, it'll start increasing the payment. And what the purpose of that is you might be making more money 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now than you are right out of school. So that's an option. You can also do extended, and I think that's 25 years where, you know, they're going to stretch out the payments over that many years. But of course, you know, your loan's maturing, the interest is accruing, so you're going to end up paying a little bit more down the line. The other thing that you can do is income-based. This is a very good one for, you know, a lot of my friends actually did this one. So this is good for, you know, new dentists or medical residents or anybody in the medical field where you do have a financial hardship, because come on, let's face it, we are 6 figures in debt, and when we come out, we're not making enough to even pay all of that off at once. So what they do is they use a monthly calculator, and they base it on your income, so you have the payments are affordable and they're smaller, okay? So that can help for people, or you can do pay as you go. But there's so many options for repaying your loans. You just got to figure out what works the best for you, okay? But the point is, you have to pay them back, and the sooner you pay them back, the more glad you will be, okay? How this works, because let's face it right now, loans, they will never, ever, ever go away, okay? You're just going to end up accruing more and more and more, whether that's practice loans or, you know, car loans or house mortgages. It's just going to follow you through life, okay? So it's very common, okay. So it's very common to have a lender or multiple lenders, you know, and you make sure, please, you guys, familiarize yourself with the NSLDS, okay? That's what I keep talking about, the National Student Loan Data System, and that's where they have all your information on there. That's where I went on to check always my payments, my histories, what loans I paid, what I didn't, and that's everything. I could document that in writing should, you know, something happen and they said I didn't get something, okay? Because if you do get a late payment or end up missing a payment, like I said, that's going to affect your credit report. That's going to make, you know, even the simple things like, you know, signing up for utilities or renting an apartment more difficult for you. And honestly, building a practice or borrowing more money or, you know, buying a car, it's going to make it impossible if you are late or default on these payments, okay? Student loan payment is no joke, okay? So I don't know if you guys know this, but the government, I know this is scary, but the government can actually garnish a percentage of your wages and your Social Security benefits, and they can actually offset your income tax refund if you don't pay your loans back. So, you know, it can't just disappear off the face of the earth. So they're gonna get you, okay? So be careful about that. So the best way to manage your loans is contact your loan provider, okay? Figure out what your grace period is. Most of the time, the grace period is about 6 months after you graduate. So you have about a 6-month window from the time you graduate to the time you start paying your loans off, okay? Some loans are a little different, but for most of the federal loans, it's 6 months, okay? So I would double check with your loan providers on that. If, let's say, you can't find a job, which is, you know, pretty rare in our field, but for some reason, whether it's a medical reason or personal history or personal family history, if you're unable to find employment, there are options for you, okay? You can seek deferment, and what that is, it's going to basically excuse you from making a payment for a certain period of time, and during that time, no interest is going to accrue on it. So again, go to your loan provider, and I'm not going to get into the details, but you can actually see what those reasons are, okay? The other thing is you can actually make sure you keep accurate records, and always, 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 this is a big one, pay more than what's required, okay, whenever possible. This is one of the things that I did, okay? So just because a loan, you know, told me I owed that $400 a month for that particular loan didn't mean I just paid the minimum. And on the next couple of slides, I'm going to tell you what I ended up doing. But pay more if you can. You know, throw an extra $50 towards that loan. Throw an extra $100 or $400 or whatever you have that is just sitting there, you can put towards a loan and start paying them off. That's what I ended up doing, you know. So find out what works best for you. Like I said, go to the website, check it out for that, okay? Let's take a look. It's freezing up on me. There we go. Okay. So student loan debt. I know it sounds horrible because we've got so much of it. We have, you know, we're indebted to it for a long, long time, but it's considered a good form of debt. It's an educational debt because it's an investment that it's gonna grow, and it's gonna grow in value, and it's basically there to help generate, you know, long-term income. So you're investing in your professional development. So it's okay that you have that debt. It's really good for you, okay? Practice ownership, again, you're investing in an income-producing asset, whether it's private practice or a DSO-supported practice or anything else like that. It's going to be generating money for you. So that's a good debt to have. It builds equity, okay? And then home ownership, another thing that builds equity. This is also good debt to have, okay? But as you can see, you see the way it's trended: education, practice, then home. I highly, highly, highly recommend and encourage you guys, if you're thinking of, you know, owning a practice and owning a home, that you buy the practice before you buy your home, okay? Because if you buy your home first, it's basically going to put more burden as a borrower to buy the practice. It just got a lot worse, okay? So it's better that you buy a practice before a home, okay? Because the longer ownership is delayed, the more money is going to be lost because you're missing on earning opportunity. One of my friends, really, really good friends, just a quick story to the side, is she actually worked in a PDS-supported practice, but what she ended up doing was she ended up buying a house first, and then she ended up, you know, wanting to buy into the office that she was working at. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to secure the right dollar amount of loans that she could because of the loan from her home. So if you guys are serious about practice ownership and a house, I would definitely go the practice route first, okay? The biggest things you can do, and this is going to be me talking now, okay? I'm going to talk about my budget, okay? I'm going to talk about what I did to, you know, how did I pay my loans? Did I pay all of them off, or am I still paying them off, okay? Live on a budget. I could not give you anything clear. If you can take something away from me, take that away from me, okay? Live on a budget. Figure out what your income is going to be when you graduate, wherever you're going to work. Figure out what you're going to make. Figure out what your expenses are, and at the end of the presentation, we'll have a couple of links for you guys to actually look at like a budget financial planners. So create an expense list, okay? Figure out where you need to make these cutbacks so you can start saving some money. So I'm going to tell you my story. So when I came out of dental school, I had $200,000+ in loans, okay? And after I got married, which was right after I graduated, I ended up actually moving to my in-laws' house for 6 months because I wanted to save some money, okay? So it was a trade-off, right? I worked my butt off, okay? I worked Saturdays. I still work Saturdays. I work late hours till 7, 8 o'clock. Look, it's like 9 o'clock here, and I'm still here, you know? One piece of advice that I learned from, and never, ever, ever, ever make a big purchase after dental school, okay? That car can wait. That house can wait. And this is a really big challenge for a lot of us because we go from making no money to making a good amount of money. You know, our income drastically goes up. So this is a huge challenge for us not to spend it all or start spending it and living this lavish lifestyle that we always dreamed of as a dentist. You know, I went into this field because I wanted to have, you know, financial freedom. That was one of the reasons why I went into this field. So please make sure you're not making these big purchases. After I got out of school, I still drive my Nissan, okay, that I've had from freshman in college. I did not buy a house. Like I said, I lived with my in-laws for 6 months. Then I got an apartment, you know, crappy apartment with me and my husband, okay? I did not go on any vacations, other than my honeymoon, which was a wedding gift, okay? What else did I do? You know, no $5 Starbucks lattes, no lunches, $10 lunches, no drinks with friends every single night. You know, I figured out what I could splurge on once a week. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wasn't, you know, living in a hole, but at the same time, every dollar that I had, I was trying to save as much as I possibly could so I can actually pay my loans off. And what I did every pay period, oh, there goes the lights again. Sorry, guys. Hold on. Okay. So what I did every pay period was I would log in, I would look to see how much they took away of my automatic payment, then I would look and see which loans were the highest interest rates, the ones that, I think mine were 8.6 were the highest ones that I had. So I looked to see the dollar amount, and I see, okay, I have $4,000 left on this loan. Hey, I got $1,000 sitting in my bank account, let me pay it off, you know? So I would slide that $1,000 over, make an additional payment, wipe out my savings, and start from scratch the next pay period, okay? And I did that for, 2 years. Every time I would go and look and I would see, hey, I've got an extra $500. Hey, I just saved $5,000. I got a bonus. It's going to my loans. That's exactly where it went. I did not spend it on anything else, okay? And because I was very strict in the way I managed my budget, 2 years out of school, I paid off my $200,000. I'm actually student loan free right now, okay? And that was all I did. It was nothing special. Nobody helped me. It was just, you have to be pretty strict about what you want. If you want it, you can get it done. So I do have more loans now, but I have practice loans, and that's completely different. But I did pay off my student loans 100%. About, let's see, yeah, to 2 years right after school. And guess what I did to celebrate? I went and had a $5 beer at happy hour, and that was it. So it's not impossible. Believe me, I'm there where you are. I was there, and now I have this burden that's lifted off of me that now I can invest in, now I'm starting to invest in real estate, and now I'm starting to look at more practices, and I have that financial freedom that I'm not weighed down by this student loan debt that's kind of this dark cloud that's hanging over me. So everybody, does it a different way. This is the way I did it, and it worked for me. So I hope you take something from that, okay? So I'm going to let Rich take over for just a second here.
Thanks, Dr. Patel. That crazy silence you heard there was everybody saying, wow, doing the math on 2 years, $200,000 plus to have it totally paid off is really an admirable feat. And we're going to ask that same question of everyone here. If you wouldn't mind sharing, this is a goal that's within reach for many of you as well, with the same type of discipline that Dr. Patel is describing. And appreciate you sharing your feedback. And wow, look at the responses coming in. Thank you kindly. We're in our home stretch. Dr. Patel is going to touch on a few more important subjects and relate to her budgeting and some tips that she's introduced in brief. And then we're going to take your questions in just about 5 minutes or so. So we're almost there. Just a few last folks answering the poll now, and then we'll show that and get underway in just a moment. We've got just a few more seconds left, everyone, and then I'll turn the controls back over to Dr. Patel. About 5 more seconds if you have that last question you want to get answered. All right. And here's what that looked like, folks.
Right, yeah. Hey, I'm jealous of that one person who, has less than 150,000. Good for you.
Exactly right.
Yeah, so, we're all in the same boat together. Like, this isn't, it's a lot of money. I know it's a lot of money. Believe me, it seems like a mountain that you'll never be able to get over. If I can do it, you can definitely do it, okay? And one of the things that, what you can do, like I said, let's just summarize real quick. Limit your spending, maximize your spending according to your benefits, get a financial planner. This is a big one. Buy the practice before you buy a real estate. It's common sense, right? But sometimes it just takes a little bit of control on our end to make sure this is what we do. Every 2 weeks, I would log on to the financial website, and I'm like, okay, let me see where my loans are at. Let me see what I can do next, So be diligent about it, Don't spend it on a new house or a brand new car, you're a dentist, you feel like you earned it, and you did, but at the same time, I come to work in my Nissan while my assistant's driving her BMW, and I don't even care, because guess what? One day, I will be financially wealthy and I don't have to worry about my debt, right? You know, the same thing, restaurants, vacations, just kind of, you know, lay low, start spending, you know, the extra money that you have towards your loan, and you will be better for it. You will feel better in a few years, I promise, okay? It felt great. And I have friends who, one of my friends actually, we went to dental school together, so I know kind of how much he is in debt, and it's about the same as me, except for he took out the max amount of loans because he wanted to, and the extra money he took out, you know, he bought like a a Lexus in our last year, which is nothing wrong with that, but right now, he's almost $1 million in debt right now, okay, because now he has a Porsche, and he got a practice, and he's building another practice, so he's over $1 million in debt, if you can believe that, and that's something that's really hard for me to stomach, so I was like, nope, I'm paying it off, and I will get wealthy one day. So these are some of the budgeting do's and don'ts, pretty common, and just so you guys know, like, don't feel like you're alone, okay? The American Dental Association is working on this, okay? You're not in it alone, okay? Right now, you know, we are trying to get Congress to lower interest rates and minimize the burden of student debt. You know, there's lobbying efforts going on at the congressional level to make, you know, borrowing easier for us, like the whole income-based loan repayment. That's pretty new. It came out, what, 4, 5, 6 years ago. So they're working on it. They're working to promote awareness of the issue. They're working on different policy shifts to, you know, help minimize risk and, you know, be your advocate and, you know, have these debt forgiveness programs, which they have. You know, if you go and work in the public sector or you work in an underserved area, then your loans can be forgiven. And there's a lot of good information about this on the website. So I encourage you guys to check it out if this is something that you're interested in. But bottom line is, you know, you're not alone, that we are working on this. It is a national problem. I think it's ridiculous that we should have to pay that much for, you know, student loans for our own future, but hey, it is what it is, you know. I'm going to leave it there. So one thing that I can tell you about your financial future, we're in a great position. You guys are going to kill it. Whether you're first, second, third, or fourth year right now, listening in, the future is so bright for us, okay? There's so many opportunities, whether you go in private practice or whether you go in a dental-supported organization or whether you go in, you know, public sector, it doesn't matter, or whether you go get a GPR or AGD, it doesn't matter. There is so much work out there. Dentistry is in high demand, and they will all be looking for us, okay? You can check out the Pacific Dental Services Careers homepage if you were interested. Just check it out. But again, the most important thing is to find a job and start working. That's all I can tell you. Just get a job, start working, and as you get into that role, you're going to realize what you like and what you don't like. Like I said, I went through 2 jobs in a matter of 4 months before I found something that I liked. So don't be afraid to, you know, explore your options and figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. It's okay, okay? So in conclusion, what I can tell you, just what we talked about, I'm going to conclude everything. Make sure you follow the right order to secure your assets, okay? So what that means, you've got your student loans, practice next, car and home last, okay? So that way it'll help with your debt. And it starts with your credit health. So for those of you that don't know your credit report or don't know how to access that, check it out, look it up, see what yours is, and get in touch with your lenders to figure out how you're going to start paying these loans back, okay? That's the biggest thing. What are you going to do to start paying this back, okay? That's Steve Thorne right there. He is the president and CEO of Pacific Dental Services, and that was actually that picture is from the, first time I actually was an associate, and I was just, chit-chatting with a bunch of people, and in there he walks into the room, and so I started talking about all the challenges that I had as an associate, and so it was just, I just thought I would put it out there because it reminded me where I started, and, it takes a lot of work, but, you'll get through it. Take a look. Okay, so this is some of the links that I was talking about. let's see, Rich put together this. They're great, great, great resources for you, okay? So about student loans and debt, financial rules of thumb. When we get this presentation out, you'll be able to actually click on it if you can't already. So the last one, manage your spending. It's the, simple tips to manage personal spending. I think there's like a budget planning on there. So check out some of these resources and websites, find out what works for you, and hopefully, and I've been through some of these, are awesome, so please, please, please check that out for you. If it'll help, great, okay? At this point, I guess I will be, oh, excuse me, I'm clicking too fast. Oh, I didn't realize we're at the end. Oh my gosh, okay. Oh wow, that was 45 minutes. Wow, that went fast, sorry.
You are doing right for your time, and you've given us a great opportunity to be able to ask some valuable questions. Thanks, Dr. Patel, on everyone's behalf. We appreciate you sharing that experience with us. We've had several questions coming in as we went along, but if you don't mind, let's start with this particular one. When you had those extra funds to be able to drive towards your loans, should we as borrowers be thinking about applying it towards the next payment or the principal, or how should we best allocate those funds?
So what I did was I applied it for the current payment in addition to what I already was paying. So it'll say, when you do start allocating it, it'll say, did you want this to come out of your next payment or your current payment? So I always did current, so I would have an idea in my head how much I was putting in right then and there. And usually they send you like confirmation right afterwards that you're starting to pay it off. I didn't pay any of it while I was in school, okay? So that's why I had that high, because I didn't have any income. I wasn't working while I was in school. So I started right away after that. But I did it towards the current monthly payment, the minimum payment, and I added to that one.
Great. So that started to chip away at your principal right off the bat as soon as you had that surplus. That's really terrific. From the standpoint, one of the questions we had is, if you have private loans and federal loans, is it still possible to consolidate them?
Ooh, that's a good question. From my understanding, I do believe, and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe that only the federal loans can be consolidated. Am I wrong in that?
Jackie, we're going to double check that specific point and reply to you offline if you think that's a good solution. We'd like to be able to share that and just double check. I think that Dr. Patel is on the right track, but we'd like to be able to bring that home for you so that we can verify for sure.
Yeah.
Next question, do you need, and I think that you can talk to this very directly, Janki, that from the standpoint of having a third party or an advisor, was this something, were you able to pay down your debts by yourself? Did you need to have any sort of advisor or someone to manage that process for you?
Actually, no, I didn't have anybody. It was me and my husband, so a little side story, he also had almost close to 6 figures in loans as well. He's a lawyer now, so this was while he was in grad school, in law school. So he was kind of my advisor, and I was kind of his advisor, so we would kind of bounce off of each other. He did a lot of his own research, and he would share that with me. I didn't have any professional advisor to help me during this time. The only time I actually ended up getting a financial advisor or planner was when I started buying into this practice. But at the time, I didn't know.
That sounds great. From a standpoint of emergency funds, we had a couple questions that came up about the value of having an emergency fund available for things that might pop up versus paying down those debts. How did you balance that? Where did you sequence? I'm sure that now you do have such an emergency fund. Where did you start to think about that in your progression into dentistry?
So my emergency fund now is called my vacation fund. No, I'm kidding. So yes, I actually had I kept kind of 2 accounts, okay? And one account was where I was depositing my paycheck, was just going in that one account. And from there, I took about, I would say, less than a quarter of it and put it in this other account, so to speak, my emergency fund, okay? And because my husband was also working, so what we ended up doing was through his pay, we would, kind of pay off our rent and day-to-day living with what he had. And so everything that I had was kind of more let's pay this off and let's put this to the side. Let's pay this off, let's put this to the side. So that's what I ended up doing. I think it was less than a quarter, less than 20% I would put to the side, and everything else was going to student loans. You know, I mean, make sure you have health insurance, but you're right. I was thinking, but I wasn't thinking enough. I just wanted to pay my loans off, and I didn't think anything could happen. But we did have his income too, as well. So.
Got it. Do you think that the same principles that you applied here into your family and your practice and yourself, would they apply as well if you had gone into a specialty program or additional training in that way, like an ortho program?
You know, depending, well, let's say for ortho program, there are some programs that will pay you a residency salary, but then there are some programs where you actually have to pay more tuition. So it's not something I was interested in, not because of a financial standpoint. It's just because I was ready to go out there and work, and I figured whatever I didn't know I would learn as I go, because there was not one residency that interested me more than another. But yes, when you were talking about residency, you are talking about adding more debt, which is okay, but that because the return could be even higher for you as a specialist if you know, play your cards right. So either it will add more debt or they will give you a salary. It's not much, but it's enough where you could start paying a little bit off. It just depends on what program you go into and what school.
Very helpful, very helpful. In that same way, if you think about it in this capacity, we have a couple of questions that are talking about CE, Dr. Patel. And if you, as a new dentist, are thinking about taking CE classes that may have their own expense tag associated with them, what are your thoughts on continuing your development from a CE course perspective versus putting that money towards your student loans?
Okay. Well, absolutely. You should, like I said, education is going to be the foundation of what our future is. So if you feel like, if you feel like you need to invest in a CE to further your educational development, by all means do it. You know, you're going to kick yourself for not doing it. One of the benefits that, you know, that Pacific Dental offered us and offered me was CE courses, and they were actually free. So I got to learn a lot of hands-off stuff that way that I ended up having not pay for any CE courses. And I'm talking like implant crowns, and I'm talking like CEREC, and I'm talking, you know, leaderships and business skills and things like that. So I ended up not paying for a lot of my CE, but of course, if you're more than interested in learning additional skills outside of what you already know, invest in it. That is, first of all, it could be a tax write-off. It's you know, investing in your future. It's an educational loan. I mean, it's an educational expense. So all that can be expensed out later. So I would not worry, hesitate on that. It's just with Pacific Dental, they offered a lot of CEs for me that I didn't really have to pay and go out and get my own.
Got it. Mm-hmm. What about from the students that are graduating, several that we saw even in the polling situation, they're going to be even higher on that scale. Would it make more sense in that type of structure? Would it make more sense to think about minimum monthly payments with a 25-year loan forgiveness program? What are your thoughts in that capacity?
Absolutely. I actually have a lot of friends who are in the medical program whose loans are, you know, way out there higher than ours. And that's exactly what they're doing. It's a 25-year, and I don't know all the details, so Rich, if you could jump in a little bit on that. But after 25 years, your loans are they're forgiven as long as you make the minimum monthly payments. And I even think I'm going to stretch it a little bit and say if you participated in certain public sectors, they will forgive it sooner in underserved areas and things of that nature.
That's true, and many states are wrestling with that issue about making sure that there is access between the patient population that needs care and dentists and bringing them into those regions. And some instances, West Virginia, I believe, has such a policy, parts of North Carolina, and others. So there are steps that you can take to investigate those now that'll help position you as you're thinking about your next steps in your career and what follows.
Yeah, and income-based is a great solution for that, and that's why they came out with it. I think they started it in 2010 or 2011. I mean, it's relatively new, and it will help you. It'll help those payments come down. Yes, in the long run, you know, you pay a little bit more interest and stuff, but for right now, at least you're paying your loans, and you're doing it against what you're making, so you can't feel guilty about not paying it off because you're not making much, and that's okay.
And from the standpoint, one of the things that I see this question also being repeated, and I know that you can talk to this to Dr. Patel, is it true that just because you have student loan debt that you're not a good candidate for a loan, and as you start to think about those next steps in your practice development and aspirations of owning your own business and your own practice one day?
Absolutely not. Oh, there goes my light. Sorry, guys. Last time, I promise. Okay. Absolutely not. You know, you're investing in your education. It's okay. I mean, it's okay to have student loan debt. They know you went to school. They know you put a lot of money into it. It's okay to not pay off your loans and then look into a practice. You don't have to worry about it from that standpoint. Like I said, this is all good debt. This is stuff that's invested for your future, right? So it's okay to have student loan debt, and it's okay to start looking for a practice a year, 2 years, 3 years. But just what the point was is, don't, between that time frame, don't not pay off your loans or start paying your loans off in the meantime. That was the whole point of that. But absolutely, it's okay to have student loan debt before you are thinking of practice debt and thinking of adding additional practice debt. And I did. I had practice debt at the same time I was paying off my student loans. I borrowed 6 figures for my office here. So, you know, but again, you're building that in the equity to your office, and that's a return that you will get. So that's a good debt to have. You want that.
A couple more questions, Dr. Patel, before we let you finish for the evening. Jacqueline asks a question and says, I've heard that it's a good idea to pay some of the interest off while you're in school to prevent it from accruing. Is it okay to do that with loan money, or should you only consider doing that if you have extra funds outside of loans?
Oh my gosh, if you're lucky enough to pay some of this off while you're in school, by all means, please do. Whether, you know, the more you accumulate later, the higher interest, the higher principal payments are going to be. So while you're in school, if you have, you know, parental help, or if you have, if you can do it yourself, by props to you, I encourage you to start paying it off now if you can. At least start paying off some of the interest, and always look for the higher interest loans. I don't know what percentages you guys have right now, if they're all different. Mine are all different. They range from 6% to, you know, 8.4, 6.8, 7.2. I had a whole bunch of different percentages, so always get those higher percentages first and knock those out.
For those of you asking, I'll make mention of it once very quickly. Yes, we will make this presentation available to you afterwards, so if you want to refer back to either some of the points that Dr. Patel had raised during her presentation or in our Q&A session, we will make that available to you. So that's just kind of a quick blanket statement, housekeeping-wise. But back to some of our questions from the community, Dr. Patel. Do you have any tips on how to save on taxes relative to student loans? It seems that our income level puts us out of the tax bracket where we can benefit from tax incentives.
Can I get back to you on that one?
Yeah.
I would definitely follow up with that in an email. If you can get me that info, I will follow it up. I'm working on a couple of things right now in terms of taxes, but I will answer that question for you. Yeah.
That's great. And for those of you who are interested, Dr. Patel has very graciously, and we'll show it in just a moment, has agreed to share not only her email, which I think is just tremendous, but also she's making available her cell phone to take on any last questions that you have. And as you're thinking about this step, if you want to bounce some additional ideas off her, she has really graciously offered to make that available to you. So I encourage you to make a quick note of that. And take advantage of her generosity at some point that's convenient for you both. I see a couple questions, Victoria. If you can return loans while still in school, should you do that or pay down the interest? Thoughts, Dr. Patel?
I would start paying, if you can pay off the loan, pay off the loan. And if you can't, start with the interest at least. But if you are able to pay the loan off, guess what that means? You paid off the interest for that too, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Is it realistic to want to save money to buy into a practice instead of paying down loans?
You should honestly be doing both. I personally, you know, saving up your money to buy into a practice is great because you're thinking about your next steps, but now you're just accruing more debt as you go with you. Even though it's good debt, it's still something that's going to be hanging over you. So if you're able to start paying your loans off, that's where I would start with. You know, that office, it can wait a month, or, you know, if it can't wait, by all means buy it, and you can take out a loan for that, but at the same time, make sure your credit and make sure everything else is in good standing. I would still focus on the loans.
Great question. Great answer.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that might be all the questions we have an opportunity to address. If you have a couple last stragglers, folks, we'd be happy to take on one or two more before I have to let Dr. Patel rejoin her family and get on to her evening here. But she's made herself available. If you have any last breaking questions, we'd love to tackle them.
If you guys have any questions, there's my address. That's my personal cell phone, and that's my work email. I actually check my work email more than I check my personal email. So, you know, go ahead and shoot me an email, shoot me a text, call me. I don't care. It's okay. If you guys, that's my practice website. If any of you guys are interested, you know, in Pacific Dental or wanting to know anything more, just let me know. You know, I have people coming in here all the time, shadowing and watching, and so that's not a problem. One thing I just want to share real quick is next week's speaker. Can I go ahead and do that, Rich?
Let me just tackle one more question that came in just under the wire, and then I think that's a great point. We'll talk about next week's session in just a second. But if there's at least a $500 a day income for the first 3 months when first starting out in your office, and then you can earn more when you've built up your hand speed and your skills and your diagnostic capacity, do you think that that's enough to pay off loans and live comfortably? Or if someone's facing that type of structure, should they be thinking about loan repayment at that point?
So that was the structure that I had. That was exactly what I had, and that's what you're going to see when you come out of school at most places. You're going to see some sort of daily guarantee or, you know, compensation to start off with, and the whole purpose of that is so you can build up your speed and you can build up your clinical skills and you can build up your practice and your patient volume and things of that nature. But that's what I started with, and the only way you're ever going to get more is what you put into it. You know, I worked very hard to get to the next step and get to the next tier and keep going and keep going. I still have a lot to go, but at the same time, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Well, it's because it's 10 o'clock here, everything shuts down, so I can't turn it back on again. Sorry.
All right.
But it's not unfeasible. I'm not saying you have to put every dollar into, you know, your student debt, but yes, you can live comfortably. And what I mean by that is, you know, you don't have to be eating ramen noodles every night, but at the same time, you don't need to go buy a brand new Mercedes or buy, you know, a high-rise condo in the city when, you know, you've got other things to worry about. But you can do it. I did it. You know, that's exactly where I started from. That was what I had when I started.
Well, okay, if you would, let's transition and talk about what Dr. Muggleston's presentation will consist of on the 15th.
All right, so I want you guys to definitely check out Dr. Muggleston. He is amazing, okay? He is one of the best people that you will ever find in terms of a practice owner and in terms of how to find a mentor and build leadership skills. He is a mentor for so many people that I know, myself included. I am looking up to him right now, and I want to, you know, pick his brain. So I encourage you guys to check him out for next week, and the topic is gonna be how to find mentors and how to build leadership skills when you're out in practice. So check it out. He is awesome.
All right, thank you for making that mention, and certainly, Dr. Patel, we really appreciate you spending all your time with us this evening. It was a really informative discussion, and we appreciate not only the presentation and the recommendations you offered in that capacity, but making yourself available and fielding all of these questions from the audience off the cuff. I know it's a rapid-fire approach, and you held up really well, and we really appreciate you sharing some knowledge with us all. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you guys, everyone, for taking some time off and, you know, listening to me. But like I said, any more questions or anything you guys have, just let me know, and I am here to help you. And thank you, Rich, for putting this together. It was great.
It's our pleasure. The next EDS is here for all of you and bringing some speakers, really top-notch folks like Dr. Patel and many others, Dr. Muggleston, Dr. Vallejo, all part of a great lineup that we've composed for you folks this spring as you start to think about your transition and the next steps after dental school. We hope you'll continue that dialogue with us just 2 weeks from tonight. In the meantime, we'd really appreciate your feedback on our post-event survey, and come visit us again when you can. Thank you so much for your time, everyone.